Welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicast. In this landmark two-part series, celebrating our 200th episode, Jack Schonely and I have the honor of welcoming Kevin Means, a legendary figure in law enforcement aviation, and the familiar voice you hear at the beginning of every episode of the Hangar Z Podcast. This special series dives deep into Kevin's unforgettable "Don't Go Over That Fence" incident, illuminating its significant impact on public safety. Join us as we explore the evolution of the TFO training and the remarkable journey that led Kevin from a curious childhood to becoming a respected police officer. Together, we discuss the unique dynamics of the San Diego Police Department, addressing the challenges faced by law enforcement in the region, including the infamous San Diego tank chase and the transformative advancements in air support technology and policing. Kevin talks about the early part of his career, where he reflects on working patrol and the infamous border crime suppression team that was written about in the book Lines and Shadows by Joseph Wamba. We discuss the importance of crew resource management in aviation. Kevin shares his perspectives on the media's portrayals of law enforcement and the changing public perceptions of police work. With his extensive experience, Kevin highlights the critical importance of communication, training, and leadership in the field. He discusses the founding of the company Tactical Flying, as well as his role in mentoring the next generation of aviators. As we approach the conclusion, Kevin reflects on his retirement and his ongoing commitment to education and mentorship within aviation. Join us for this monumental series as we look back at the journey of law enforcement aviation and forward to the future of our industry. Tune in and help us celebrate 200 episodes of the Hangar Z Podcast. Thank you to our sponsors, Shotover, Metro Aviation, and Bell.
Welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z Podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Join your host, John Gray, Jeff Ratkovich, and Jack Schonely.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like they're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, through the shotgun, through something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
4 on the stop. You're in custody.
Good advising code 4 on the stop.
Welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast. I'm your host today, Jack Schonely, and with me is the creator of the Hangar Z Podcast, Mr. John Gray. Hello, John.
Hello, Jack. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you. We've been talking about this one for a while, too. We say that about all of them because it's true. We have people in mind and we go, wow, we've got to get that person. Yeah. Yes, let's start working on that. And then we get busy, but then it comes to fruition and we make progress. And this is one that we talked about for a while. And I really wasn't sure if our guest was gonna join us because he's retired and, maybe just for whatever reason, but I thought we got to at least ask him. And the main reason we got to ask him is he's on the podcast every single episode. I mean, you've just listened to him in the past minute. And what I'm talking about is the man that is legendary in our industry from San Diego PD, the don't go over that fence man, Mr. Kevin Means. Kevin Means, welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast.
Thank you. Good to see you again, Jack. John?
Yeah. Thanks for being here. Like Jack had mentioned, we kind of thought about this episode. This is the 200th and 201st episodes that we're recording with you. And it's a big deal for us. It's a milestone recording. And I thought through, and Jack did, who would be a great guest for the 200th episode to celebrate, kind of what we as a community have accomplished through the podcast. And I think we both thought immediately you would be a great person to get on the podcast. We just had to track you down. We didn't have any idea. We had agents out in the field trying to figure it out, and we finally pinned you down. But all jokes aside, it's an honor to have you here.
Well, thanks. I got ex-wives out there looking for me too. So,
oh, Kevin, this will be great. It's funny that the industry changes, people change, people come and go with, what they were involved with. But you're one of those people that are going to live on in this industry for many, many years to come, for a lot of reasons that we're going to talk about. But one of them is going to be our first topic here. And that is, don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. That incident is amazing. It's used constantly for instruction. I've used it. I've talked about it, especially with new TFOs, saying there's a time to be assertive and there's a time to be calm. And when you say something, there's going to be times you're going to say something, you want something to happen right now because it's the safety of the officer. That's the best example I've ever seen is your video of that. So everybody's seen it, everybody's heard it, but not many people have talked to you one-on-one and learned about that incident. I mean, the whole incident and your thoughts at the time and your thoughts afterward. And so let's just talk about Don't Go Over That Fence. Tell us about that incident from beginning to end, anything you want to say about it, your perspectives and how that went down.
Yeah, that was one of those things where when it started to happen, you knew that the odds were very high that this is not going to end well for somebody. It started out at about midnight. We got a call. I was the TFO on that flight, and we got a call of a 10851, a stolen car, had just occurred at shotgun points, sawed-off shotgun, somewhere up in Long Beach, I believe it was. And they put out, and the car had low jack. In San Diego, we call it Lomex because all the cars go to Mexico when they're stolen. But they said they put it out, so we said, "Oh, that's interesting. Let's get some altitude here and see if we can start picking up that signal." Well, sure enough, we were up to, I think we got up to about 4,000 or 5,000 feet, and it was midnight, so the airspace was pretty much ours. And we started picking up the signal, but they're not the most perfect signals. You just know it's there. So we start directing officers. It's clearly coming south towards San Diego. And it gets into the area of, I believe it was near Claremont, which is not far from our home base, the Air Support Unit's base. And as it gets stronger and stronger, we keep descending to kind of try to pinpoint that vehicle. And we're directing units into the area who have low jack and some don't. And there's not many cars on the road at that time of night. So sure enough, a unit without low jack, just looking around, doing good street police work, sees the vehicle and gets in behind it. And wisely, now everybody knows these guys, there's two suspects. They fit the profile of being total turds. And we know they're armed with a sawed-off shotgun. It's a high-risk situation. So they get the conga line behind them, K9. We're of course, overhead, and we're recording everything because that's our policy, and we record things. And as soon as everybody gets in position, what was so nice about that incident is we could tell in the aircraft that this was a very serious thing. Not that we don't look at other things as being very serious, but we could tell this one is for real. Yeah. Don't screw this one up. Well, we could tell that the ground units were doing exactly the same thing. When the car, before they're ready to stop it, when the car would come to a traffic light, they could see the cops behind it. They knew the heat was on. But, they always wonder, are they just behind me coincidentally, or are they watching me?
Right.
But the cops, they wouldn't pull right up on their bumper. They stayed back. So I didn't have to tell them those things. They just knew. Okay, and so everybody's on the same sheet of music here. So basically, they make a couple of clearing turns to see if the cops are behind them. Where all the good guys are in position. They light them up, and the chase is on. Of course, if there's speed bumps on the road, and they don't care how their car is. So their car actually got damaged hitting a speed bump, and you can see the recording when it pops into the air. And but they're idiots, and luck was on our side that night, and they went down a one-way dead-end street. So they get down towards the end where they can see there's nowhere else to go. They hit the brakes. Passenger runs out. Now, this is where even I don't really know why I did something different than I knew, but it was just a sense that, okay, I need to stick with this guy, the passenger. Usually we stay with the driver of a 10851. He's the other guy gets a slap on the hand and he's gone if you can catch him. But as soon as this guy got out of the car, we could see with the FLIR that he was carrying something, probably the shotgun. Okay, there's our threat. And of course, we're always worried, are they going to go back around the house, come back around with cover and concealment and start shooting at the cops while they're working on a hot stop of the driver? So we just told him, you take the car, stick with him. we got the passenger. And of course, he runs down as far as he could go on the end of the street and goes over a fence, throws the shotgun over the fence. That alerted us quite a bit, like when he got out of the car with it. But as I used to teach in the class, he did one thing in that incident where, okay, this is it. Katie, bar the doors. This is not going to end well here. When he went over the fence, he didn't keep running. He picked the shotgun up. Okay, this is it. Game on, everybody. Everyone knows it. We told him he's picking up the shotgun. And right now, of course, here comes the troops are coming in, and they don't see him, but we're directing them to him. And they come, one or two officers comes up to it, the same fence he just went over, as the suspect is running with the shotgun around that same side of the house. And that's when we knew, hey, look, you're so vulnerable going over that fence. And we got this guy. We got it. We can see him. We can see what he's doing. So it was, don't go over the fence. Don't go over the fence. Let him know where he is. Stop. Let's get this place locked down. Let's get the neighbors out of the house next door. We've got this if we just use our heads. Well, speaking of using our heads, suspect runs around the back, realizes that the gig is up, and blew his coconut off, which is all on camera. So, it was quite, if you listen to my voice when he does that, even us in the cockpit, we went, whoa.
Yes.
His head just came apart like a melon. So that was the rest of it. Then if you get a chance to finish the video, you can see what the dog does, the canine. Which, I don't know, some kind of seemed appropriate to me. But
seemed pretty appropriate to me. Couple things. Number one, who was your pilot that night?
His name was Josh Burkhart.
Oh, Josh Burkhart. Okay.
Yep.
Just to give Josh credit too. I mean, it's a crew
Absolutely.
effort, as you well know.
Did you notice how well the aircraft was positioned?
Yes.
It was always positioned so we could see the suspect.
It was
That's
excellent.
Josh.
It was excellent. There was no question about that. That was great. The shotgun view that when he got out. Now you suspect. I mean, I love that you went with the passenger. Love that. I think that makes perfect sense. That shows your police experience, knowledge coming through, and your gut too.
Yeah.
I mean, you even said in the beginning of this was one of those you just kind of knew. Well,
you did.
We've all had those. We've all had those where you go, wow, this is a little different. This has great potential.
That's right.
Shotgun from Long Beach comes all the way to San Diego. Okay, that's a little different. All these little indicators that you caught. But the one thing, when I watched that video, and I've watched it a gazillion times, I don't see that shotgun when that guy's running. But you kind of got a look in the beginning. What can you describe that a little bit more? And was it based on the information you had, or what did you really see? Ooh, I think he has it, because he's running like a normal runner.
That's a good question. Well, he is, but he's not. Now, we knew he had the shotgun.
Right.
We didn't know he had it when he got out. But as he's running, you can see him running like this. Now, you can't make out the shotgun that's sawed off, but his body movements are, okay, he's carrying something.
Good.
And that was just that's how you would carry a sawed off shotgun if you're running with it. Well, I couldn't see. The only time I first saw it is when he threw it over the fence.
There you go.
Like, okay, he's got it.
See, that shows your experience too. I mean, you're thinking shotgun, sawed off. You're looking at him, and you're looking at the way he's running. And that's just experience where you go, oh, he's got it. I think this guy's got it. You're not saying he's got it. You never said that in the audio. It never says he's bailing out with a shotgun, guys. You never said that. You said,
no.
Okay, he threw the shotgun. Shotgun's over the fence. I mean, you're saying what you're seeing, but I've always been interested in that. I can't believe I never asked you that before. I feel kind of dumb. But what I do want you to do for our listeners and our watchers is, you just described the don't go over the fence, but I want you to say it the way you said it.
Yeah. When I teach the class, when I used to teach the tactical flying classes, I just like you said earlier, it's exactly what you said earlier about your voice, controlling your voice. If you are, for example, in a pursuit and you get all amped up, those ground units feel that. And they get amped up too. Well, that is the last thing you want them to be going through. You tell them, guys, we got this. relax. Don't worry about the intersections. This guy's not getting away. Guy or girl nowadays. Just as many girls do in pursuit. Well, we got it. Okay, watch your intersections. We got this guy. We'll get him. Well, that's literally what I tell him. Well, on this particular incident, it was as it was unfolding. First of all, everything was building pretty quick, and everybody knew this was. I mean, let's face it, Jack. What do most suspects do if they've been pulling 211s, robberies like these guys do? Yeah. When they get out in the run, because they leave the guns in the car, and they're trying to get away, or they throw them in the bushes. Something. That's what they did. This guy didn't do any of that stuff.
That's right.
In fact, he reached down to pick it up. Okay, guys, you got to make sure you do what I say here, because you can't see him. You can't see what I can see. And first of all, even if we had the searchlight on, they couldn't have seen it because he's over the fence. He's on the other side from them. So that was one of the few times I can think of in 25 years in air support that actually raised my voice. Yeah. And said, don't go over the fence. Don't go over the fence.
That voice inflection is so important, and reserving that inflection for that particular moment is critically important. Yeah. So I love that you brought that up, that if you're 25 years in air support, that was one of maybe the only times you ever did that. That's huge.
It is, because all three of us are, I know, can say that we were taught as TFOs to, just like Kevin said, remain calm. Your calmness translates to their calmness. I mean, I remember hearing that in my first month, that if you're excited, they're excited. So you got to act calm when you key that mic. Now, when you unkey the mic, if you want to go, oh my God, partner, this is unbelievable, you can do that. But when you key that mic, you better say, okay, Roger, he's running northbound. Yeah. But there is a time and a place for don't go over that fence. Stop. Back up now. There's a time for all of that. And you demonstrated that beautifully. And the fact that you can nail that and say, that was the one time, really. That's a lot of capers you were involved in, and you didn't have to do that to that extent. But your voice saved coppers that night. If coppers ignore you because you're just saying, hey, don't go over that fence, if they ignore that and go over that fence, they're in grave danger. And the voice inflection and the clear, concise words saved lives that night, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. And it continues to as well. That video has been used as a training resource, not only for air support, but for ground units as well for a long time. So I would imagine it's been reviewed thousands and thousands of times as an example of what to do in this scenario. So not only did it save the officers' lives in that particular moment in time, but it continues to, which is really cool.
That's why I said in the beginning, Kevin, you're gonna be teaching through that video, whether you like it or not, sitting in your lounge chair. It does. It sure does. Oh, dude, it helps
especially
a lot.
The $10 in royalties I get off every time it's shown.
You wish.
Let me give you another example of it's the opposite of going over the fence. And I use this in my class. I used it when I was teaching the class too. When I was brand new in air support, I had about, I think it was, 7 or 8 years on the department. But I was, you know how we are when we're first new in air support. We're on overload. We just don't know. But we're learning so much, making all these mistakes. Gang officers it's the middle of the night doing some shakes on some dirt bags at the end of a street one day. They're patting them down, feel a gun in one of the guy's pockets. Boom! Guy takes off running with the gun in his pocket. He blasts down the street. They lose him at foot pursuit. They call us. I'd been in the unit probably. Matter of fact, I was part-time. This is back in, I believe, 89 when we had part-time TFOs. And I'm overloaded with the FLIR. We've just gotten it. And I'm looking for this guy. Well, I see some guy behind a fence in the corner of an apartment courtyard laying down. It looks like a guy. The old FLIRs, you couldn't get poor resolution. And I'm looking, I've said, man, I think that's a guy. And we're trying to get the aircraft position because we didn't know how to do this stuff with FLIR back in the early days. But I get enough of a view where I think, I'd have somebody come up, look. So what I did was I walked officers up and I said, that's just the opposite of the previous call was, hey guys, peek. I told him, peek over that fence and see what you got. Is that a person there? Actually told him to do that.
Yeah.
And my partner goes, hey, he might have a gun. And by then the guy was already looking over the fence, and they draw down on him. And it's like, I look back on that video and I go, boy, have I got a lot to learn.
And you did.
You know?
But
Yeah,
you did.
Well,
People still make that mistake, Kevin. To this day, you see videos all the time where they're walking guys in on top of people and, hey, could you look here? Instead of, doing what you learned to do later. But
absolutely.
But that takes, we've all been there too. You live and learn, and you luckily you had a pilot say, hey, we shouldn't do that.
That's right.
Very interesting. Very interesting. We all evolved. Great. Well, there's a generation out there, as you know, in law enforcement aviation that maybe don't know you, but they know that video. And there's a generation in law enforcement that don't know me. We've been out of it for a while on the teaching circuit. Others have replaced us, which we'll get to a little later. But you have that video that will last forever. And as long as there's law enforcement aviation over criminal activity, there will be people learning from a very great high bar example of how to do it. So well done, Kevin. Well done all
Thanks.
around. That was great. But we had to start with that since we listen to you every podcast.
Yeah.
It's all down here from here, right?
No. I hope not.
Bell is proud to sponsor Vertical Helicasts and their vision to hold meaningful mission, safety, and best practice conversations in the helicopter industry. The lessons learned from these conversations will undoubtedly shape the future of both new and veteran helicopter operators.
I will say, as I was starting the podcast and trying to figure out how to create an intro for the podcast, I listened to a lot of different audio clips, and I'm trying to find an audio clip that is impactful and shows the importance of a TFO and the role and just everything that the TFO encompasses. And I remember, I'd been in your class, I'd seen that video before, and I remember the moment I'm like, oh, this is it. This is the one. So thank you for offering that as part of our intro. It is funny that every single episode, this is your 200th episode too. Well, maybe not.
That's great.
But it
does those royalty checks, by the way.
Yeah, they're in the mail. It's coming from Canada, and it takes a long time, Kevin. It's the mail system. Got to go through customs.
John, you said something, John, about, I don't know if you're going to get into this later, but I think your point about the TFO, that was always that was where I had such a problem, and why tactical flying was born, the business was born, is I traveled a lot as Jack did. I didn't travel as much as Jack, but I traveled a lot to different agencies. And one of the things that I noticed over and over and over was the emphasis was correctly put on pilot training. Absolutely, no doubt about it. Proficiency, not just currency, but proficiency. But in many agencies, and a surprising number of larger agencies, very little emphasis was put on TFO training and tactics. And then, well, if they screwed this up, okay, the pilot will pick it up. And that to me is like, wait a minute here, folks.
Mm-mm.
This is why we're going out there. We're going out there to get this law enforcement person in position to help these people on the ground. I mean, that's the whole purpose of it. And to not treat that person with the same training requirements, the importance, the value as a pilot in pilot training, in my opinion, was a mistake by a lot of agencies.
Yeah, me
Most
too.
agencies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Most.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at a lot of departments, including my own, and the evolution of what you just talked about. It took a long time.
It sure does.
From the JAFO days, just
That's
another
right.
an observer, to the TFO's the main person here. And you're kind of a chauffeur. You're going to where they direct you. You can have input as a pilot, certainly, but that TFO is running the show. And that was not true for ages. And I think it's true. Yeah. And now it is. And part of it's because of efforts of a lot of us that pump that.
That's right.
Constantly.
That's right.
And people go, wow, that means guy said this. That's pretty smart. He's right. It is the TFO. The pilot's job is to put them in the position to do their job. that should be mandatory. I mean, it's great. I'm glad we talked about that because that's something that evolved for over a long time.
It sure did.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's a lot to talk about, and we're going to leave this for a minute and go back in time, many years. And Kevin, we'd like you to tell us about where you grew up, a little bit of what you did as a kid and growing up, and how that evolved to military service and to San Diego PD.
Well, I'll keep it short. I was born up in Spokane, Washington, and my dad owned car dealerships, and he in the Pacific Northwest. So we would move from one town, Moscow, Idaho, Polson, Montana, Missoula, Montana, Spokane, Kennewick, Washington, Monroe, Washington. And in one of the places, when I was a kid, I always wanted to be, I could never figure it out. We grew up in the 60s, the mid 60s, 70s, and into the 80s. Well, what was popular on television back then? Adam 12, Police Story, all these shows. I didn't realize until later in life, they had a profound impact on what I thought that looks like a fun, good job. I'm outdoors. It's mostly boring, but then it's not. And you never really know. Well, that's well suited my personality. Although I was the kid that was always in trouble. My parents, I have three brothers I was the one who was always in trouble, getting kicked out of school for the class for the day and throwing snowballs at the principal and getting in trouble. I was the one my parents were always, I mean, nothing heavy duty, but my parents were always going, what is going to happen to this kid when he gets older,
Yeah. You're like
turned into a cop. He turned into a cop, but I also wanted to be a pilot. Always wanted to be a pilot. So I thought my dad moved to a house. My mom and dad moved to a house in Monroe, Washington, when I think it was 15 or 16. And there was a 2,100-foot runway airport down at the bottom of the hill where we live, across from the fairgrounds, where a lot of airports are because it's a flat approach. And the guy it was a single runway, 40 feet wide, paved, couple of hangars. And he was always looking for help, mechanics and stuff. I wasn't a mechanic. But I said, hey, I went down there, can I cut your lawn and help the mechanic do stuff? And he goes, I can't pay. I said, you can pay me with flight time. And we worked with my dad, and we all said, yeah, let's do it. So I worked off my pilot's license when I was 17. Wow. And it was helping out the mechanic. You know how valuable that was looking back on it today? Yeah. So I got to be a pilot at a young age. And then when I graduated from high school, that was in Monroe, Washington. There's a great one. My dad owned a Chevy dealer, right? The graduation ceremony was held at the fairgrounds right across the street from the airport. It's a true story. So we're going down the hill to go to the graduation. I said, I wonder what I'm going to get for a graduation present. And my big brother, he looked at me, and he was always kind of a smart ass and the big brother type, he goes, well, all I can tell you is you can really use it, and it's in Irv's garage. Irv Allen was the guy who owned the airport. It's in his garage. I go, okay, my dad's a Chevy dealer. It's in his garage. I can really use it. A pickup Camaro? I'm thinking, whoa, this is going to be. So I couldn't wait to get done with the graduation ceremony. Yeah, thanks a lot. Audio. We'll see you later. Go across the street. Go open the garage door. It's a suitcase. That I still have to this day, a suitcase. They said, basically, my parents just said, you're out of here, graduated from high school, you are out of here.
Oh my God. That's classic.
Suitcase. That's what it is. I thought, well, I better join the Navy.
I didn't see that one coming.
Dun, 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 dun.
I love that you still have the suitcase, Kevin. That really makes my day. That's great.
Your brother set you up really well on that one.
Job. Boy, I'll never forget that. We laugh about it to this day. So, but then I joined the Navy and went into. I was a crewman on H-2. Most people don't even know what H-2s are. Made by Cayman Aerospace. They haven't had them for 20 years. They've been, or maybe even more. HSL-35 in North Island. I was stationed. We deployed on a Westpac on a destroyer. It was a small ship. We only had one helicopter on it. And I had a blast. I mean, it went all over the world. We were the first task force when they took the hostages in Iran in 79. We were the first ones over there. I remember they're talking to us, the briefing, when they did that. We just pulled into the Philippines, and my partner, there was 2 of each of us on the detachment. My partner, Nick Kosmakos, he was the other AW. That's what anti-submarine warfare. Now it's aviation warfare specialist. But I said he had to go home because his wife went into emergency labor. So he got on a plane. The next morning, they take the hostages, and they say, you guys get in your helicopter and meet the ship, and you're going to the Indian Ocean, the Persian Gulf area. Okay. So we get over there, and man, I'll tell you, we flew our butts off in that H-2. And the intelligence said Iran has 1 submarine, but it's not operational. So means you're a door gunner. That's your job. I'm going, door gunner? I'm in the Navy. So they set us up with and trained with an M60, shooting garbage bags they throw off the side of the ship. And, of course, when you're 19, that's cool stuff, I'm shooting a machine gun,
Wow.
So that's what got me to the Navy, and had a blast, went all over the world, wouldn't have changed a thing. But I was only doing that to get old enough to be a cop. Because I really wanted to be a cop. And then when I was 21, the Navy actually let me out early because of that work we did off the coast of Persian Gulf. They said, if you get hired, we'll let you out early to get hired. San Diego PD called one day, and they hired me. So
wow.
Were you stationed in San Diego with the Navy?
And at North Island, yes.
Yep.
Okay. See, I started with San Diego PD as well. And
Really?
I remember, a lot of folks, I was assigned to Southern Division, so right on the border, which was pretty cool.
I was on the border task force down there.
I was too, but at a different time. It was a much different, much different detail when I was on it as compared to when you were. We need to come back to that because that is.
Oh, we will.
I think Jack's got
Okay.
that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I would notice that a lot of folks that worked for San Diego PD had been prior military and had found their way to San Diego because of their military service and didn't want to leave. I don't blame them.
Yeah.
I want to go back, but I can't afford it.
Yeah. It's a different city.
San Diego's a military town between Pendleton and all the Navy stuff. It's amazing how much military there is.
Yep.
Kevin, could you tell us a little bit more about your duties on that aircraft? I mean, submarine warfare. I'm picturing some buoy drops and stuff like that, but I don't know. Tell us about a little bit more in detail about your duties on that aircraft.
There's only 3 of us on the H-2. Now, the H-2 was actually a very powerful helicopter. It started out as a single-engine aircraft back in the 70s when they were using them. It was being used offshore in Vietnam, but then they put 2 in it. Now, the 46, the CH-46, the twin rotor kind, they have 2 T-58, GE T-58 engines on them. Well, the H-2, which is much smaller, has the same 2 T-58. So it gives you some sense of the power of this helicopter. And it had retractable landing gear. So it's a powerful, fast helicopter.
Wow.
Didn't get its credit. If you ever look at it, a picture today at the cockpit, you go, holy mac, clocks this big, old technology. But it was a good machine, I have to admit. But my job in the back, because I was enlisted, I was not an officer flying, even though I was a pilot. My job was to run, we'd punch out sonobuoys, like you were saying, Jack, that we could listen to what's going on. I had the magnetic anomaly detector, the MAD boom. We would lower down on a cable. My job was to work that equipment to detect submarines, and we'd punch out smoke markers. So if we picked up a signal like with a MAD boom, I'd get a deflection on a pin, boom, out goes the smoke. This is after processing the sound with sonobuoys. And then we'd do a pattern, and we'd come back around, and there's a signal again, boom, punch out another smoke. We do it again, and about the 3rd or 4th time, you can see the smoke markers, which way the sub is going.
Wow.
Now, I have a picture, I've got it somewhere, of us hovering over a Soviet Foxtrot submarine, which is a diesel electric boat.
Wow.
And we processed him for quite a while. And a day. It's only stayed down for about 3 days because it's diesel. And we're hovering over the top of this. It was taken from the Fanning, the ship I was on, the flight deck, by Terry Leninger, one of our AEs that worked on electronics. And we pulled up, the ship pulled up alongside, we're hovering over it. At the time, that would have been 1979 or 80. Things were kind of between us. And we can hover over this spot. It's pretty cool. But that was my job. And we had a hoist. And my job, I was a wet crewman. If you're in a helicopter as a crewman, you're a wet crewman in the Navy. At least you were back then. And my job was to, if we had to go do a search and rescue mission, I would either be the one tapped out. You'd sit in the doorway with your, and you get down to 10 and 10 knots forward, 10 feet above the ground. And they tap you out 3 times. You'd go. Then the other crewmen, if they had one, would hoist you back up. Yeah. And with doing the rescue. That were my duties.
Wow, that's cool. And
it was
in its time. That was high tech stuff.
It was. The cool thing was though, we would drop an antenna down at the data link antenna. It was about a 6-foot antenna off the belly. We had to retract it to land, but we could data link all the information from the sonobuoys to the ship, and the computers on the ship could process that information far more effectively than I could, because the computers know what to listen for. And I'm just going, yeah, that sounds like a propeller or sounds like a drivetrain, but the ship's computers, they could tell you which individual submarine that was, because they had that much intel, the sound they individually make. So they could do it much better than us. And at that point, I would just sit there and make sure everything's working right, because they need just sit back and shut up, Kevin. We're doing this over here. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like an early version of artificial intelligence, using the computers to process that data,
Yeah.
Wow. So while you're in the Navy, you decided to apply at San Diego. Was that the place you applied, or were you applying law enforcement all over SoCal, or what happened there?
That's actually a good question. I actually applied with a suburb of San Diego, National City PD. Nickname was Nasty City PD, because it was a Navy town, they have now the Mile of Cars, where it's a bunch of car dealerships. Well, back then in 78, 79, when I applied with them, I applied as a reserve officer because I was still active duty in the Navy, and they hired me as a reserve. I went to the Reserve Academy, still the same academy we go to as a full-time cop, but now it's called it was back then, it's not the Mile of Bars, it's not the Mile of Cars, it's the Mile of Bars back then. So it was a bar fight city, Yeah. So I worked with National City as a reserve for, it was about a year and a half, I think. And then as I was getting closer to getting out of the Navy, I had applied with them, San Diego Sheriff and San Diego PD. I liked San Diego. I thought it was a neat town, and it was. It was a neat city. It's a beautiful area. So I applied with San Diego, and National City wanted to hire me. Sheriff wasn't hiring at the time, and then San Diego said, "Yeah." And I talked to some people, actually a guy in National City, and he goes, "I like what I do on National City, but San Diego PD has many more options for you. We're a small department, and if you want to go do that, you want a canine like you, Jack, or you want, at that time we didn't have an aviation unit, but you want to be an investigator, sergeant. You've got all these opportunities." He goes, "I'm just trying to do you a favor. Somebody would have done it for me years ago. Go to the big departments." And I said, "Okay." So I did that.
Yeah. It's funny. I remember in my time with San Diego, people would joke about National City, and they would say the criminals, if you're in pursuit, they get off an off ramp in National City, and as soon as they realize they're in a National City off ramp, they get back on the freeway and leave National City, because they don't want anything to do with National City PD.
That's right.
They do some good work there.
Thank you to our sponsor, Shotover. Shotover Systems is the leading developer and manufacturer of high-performance gyro-stabilized cameras with advanced real-time AR mapping and mission management, all backed by unparalleled custom training and support. Now offering the M2 multi-sensor system, Sol 6-axis EO/IR platform with 4K Ultra HD color and infrared technology. Ideal for law enforcement and defense. Offered with real-time AR overlays to quickly identify streets, weather, and traffic. Automated license plate recognition, 24 megapixel digital photographs, and automated steering and tracking.
buddies who was a trainer of mine. His nickname was on National City. His nickname was Sluggo. So that tells you.
That's a clue. Hey, full disclosure today, we've got two people that work for San Diego PD and a third that applied with San Diego PD before.
Oh, you did, huh?
Absolutely. First department I
did
ever
not know
applied
that.
for, other than that I was working for a sheriff's office in Berks County, Pennsylvania, but I
Yeah.
knew I wanted to come west and I applied with San Diego. I did all their testing.
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. I ran those steps, Kevin, for the PT
Yeah.
test. You remember those steps?
That's right.
Oh,
yeah,
my
absolutely.
gosh.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
steps were tough. I mean, it was like the obstacle course. You ran around and did some stuff, ran down the steps, ran a little bit up the steps, and then over the walls and all that. That was very difficult. And I look back on it now and go, wow, they had it right.
I don't think they do it anymore.
No, they don't. No. Neither did LA's test. Wasn't that hard. It was a little easier. No steps for one thing, but neither department does the tough stuff anymore for PT tests. But I just think it's funny that we all had that San Diego draw.
Yep.
For
John, when were you with San Diego, John?
2005, 2006. And then I lateraled to Ontario in 2006.
Isn't that cool?
Oh,
you were over him
I
on
did not
stuff.
know that about you.
You were over him on stuff. That's so cool.
No kidding.
Yep.
Did you worked with Abel then quite a bit. So when you were out there.
Yep. Worked with Abel and Astria a little bit. Remember Abel coming to the police academy and landing on the grass. We all walk out there and check out Abel, and I was mesmerized. And it was the old Jet Rangers then, you know.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I was good chance I was one of those.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Was that an impact, John? I mean, or was aviation on your radar before Abel was doing stuff on your PT field and working with him?
I mean, I was always enamored with aviation, but I felt like aviation was untouchable, unreachable. I thought you had to be in the military. I thought you'd have this career path already set before you to get there. And it wasn't until, 9 or so years into my career that I figured out that wasn't the case because of my friend Kevin Hart that said, "Hey, you should think about putting in for aviation." I was like, "You can?" So, yeah.
Wow. That's really cool, the connection you two have, and didn't even.
Yeah, I didn't know that,
it.
John. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yep.
But that's true. I mean, we talk about this all the time. Air support, you're over a lot of coppers and a lot of incidents.
That's right.
And you don't even realize maybe how you're impacting ground officers with what you say, how you say it, what you do, how you help them, telling them, "Hey, great job, guys," that kind of stuff. And then later on, you meet them in different forms of life and realize that, for instance, the two of you worked together probably multiple times over that time period. That's really cool.
It's funny. My wife, Cindy, was a prosecutor at the time. She's retired from the DA's office, but she would say officers would come into her office for a case she was working, and they'd see my picture with Abel she had on her desk, and they go, "Oh, you're Kevin's wife." And she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "Do you know him?" And she said, without a doubt, every time they said, "Yeah, I know him." Well, I know his voice.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
So often that happens where people say, "Oh man, I worked with you so many times." I go, "I don't remember that." "Oh, well, you were in the helicopter."
Yeah.
But we talked many times. I go, "Oh,
That's
well,
right.
Yeah, we did on surveillances on this or that." And, your voice gets known to your troops. And especially when you're doing a good job, they remember that. They remember
a bad
that.
job. If
Yeah,
you screw it up, they'll remember that
They'll
too.
never forget
Absolutely.
that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You can get it right 9 times out of 10, and that 10th time they'll remember.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They'll let you know about it.
Yeah.
Rightly so, I guess.
We had a division called Hollenbeck, East LA. And those officers were known for being pretty tough on you when you went to roll call trainings and stuff. I learned that in K9. I mean, I remember being warned, "Hey, you're going to Hollenbeck to do some training for roll call tonight and the old timers at K9 going, "Good luck." I'm like, "What?" We go there all the time. "Oh, they're gonna tear you to shreds, Jack. Get ready." And I didn't believe them. I got there, they tore me to shreds, and I was like, "Oh my God, I wasn't even working that night." But my point of saying this is that I ended up doing that years later at air support, where I went there, And I mean, we go to East Hollenbeck all the time, work with them flawlessly, people in custody, and they're going, yeah, thanks, air unit, all that stuff. And I get there, and all they want to talk about is one incident that happened years prior to me standing there in that roll call room, where a TFO was instructing them on how and where to set up crime scene tape. And I'm like, are you kidding me? No, that didn't happen. And everybody in the room said, yes, it did. And I couldn't believe it. And I ended up doing a little research, and I suspected who it was. I did a little research. That's who it was, a micromanager.
Oh, my goodness.
Micromanager.
Oh,
and I went to him and said, hey, man, Hollenbeck remembers this 3 years later, dude.
Yeah.
Don't be micromanaging people. That's not your job, But the fact that they remembered that one thing, there was 1,000 things in that 3 years where we had success and camaraderie, and that's the one they wanted to talk about. I love that. I love that it happened. Well, we're talking about San Diego a lot, so let's dig a little deeper. San Diego Police Department. Give us a thumbnail of that. Manpower. I know it changes and all that, Kevin, and you've been retired a while, but manpower, area, anything you want to talk about with San Diego Police Department?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. My daughter is a radio dispatcher with Station A, San Diego PD. Her husband is a San Diego PD officer. So I keep up on what's going on with the department. First of all, I loved my department. I thought I was so fortunate to be with an honest, good police department, because let's face it, there were some that are better than others out there, and I thought that ours was good. So I'm glad about that. I don't think the staffing of San Diego PD has gone up one officer in at least 10 or 15 years. We have about 1,800 officers for over 1 million people and let's face it, with mutual aid with La Mesa, National City, Chula Vista, we're always helping and the sheriff's helping us, we're helping them. So thank goodness we have mutual aid because of staffing. I was training Chicago PD, and they're a mixture of Cook County sheriffs and Chicago PD. And I was back there flying with them one night in their Long Ranger. And we're working FLIR training on this particular night. And every call we go to, I look down, and there's on the FLIR, I look down, and there's 20 cops on just domestics, just calls that we would have 2 cops, maybe 3 if you're lucky on most of these calls. And I get on the ICS, I say, hey guys, are they doing this because we're working and they want to be part of this? And they go, doing what? I said, all the cops. And they go, well, no, that's normal. I said, what's the population of Chicago? They said it's a little over 3 million people. I said, how many cops you got? They go, oh man, we are way down. We're down to 11,000 cops. We're supposed to be at about 13,000 cops.
Wow.
They were down more cops for twice the population of San Diego. They were down more cops than our entire department staffing.
Yeah.
That's how low staffed San Diego PD is. But you know what I came to learn over the years was that is East Coast and West Coast law enforcement. They do it with numbers. We do it with technology, I think. I think there's a big difference
and
in the philosophies. Yeah. I started to notice that going, I'm 11,000 cops? Now, Chicago's a dangerous city. The night I got there, I went there many times. One night I got there, actually, I turned on the news, see what's going on. It was late when I flew in. They actually had 2, it's not funny, but it seems cartoonish, 2 guys tied together back to back, run over by a train and thrown on the train tracks. I mean, it's like, man, it's a violent city out here.
Yeah, no doubt.
I feel like San Diego's unique. I felt like while the crime wasn't rampant in San Diego, there was some pockets with a lot of crime, but there was some very unique incidents that have taken place. The McDonald's incident in Southern.
Oh boy.
The tank incident.
Huberty. Yeah.
There's just so many different things that have happened in San Diego that are unique. It's interesting that it happens in San Diego of all places.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
You're right. The bus chases, the tank. My partner, Todd Jager, was on that one. Everybody thinks that's me because even I think our voices sound the same.
They sound very similar. On
do.
certain calls, they sound identical. And that's one of them, by the way.
Yeah, it's one of them. And that was, you look back on that, it's funny. I just happened to see a snippet on that the other day on YouTube.
Oh, really?
I hadn't thought about it in years. Yeah, I haven't thought about it in years. Somebody, they were talking about it. And I thought, wow, and that was, God, that's about it's almost 30, well, almost, when was it? When was that? 95? Almost 30 years ago.
Yeah. Wow.
Man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't require anyone to
tank.
We don't require anybody to do math on the Hangar Z podcast, just so you know, Kevin. So it doesn't matter how long ago it was. But yeah, the tank, it's kind of like the don't go over that fence. That's going to last forever, man. I watched it not that long ago. It just popped into my head. I had been talking to Todd, and I went, and I haven't watched that in a long time. And it's amazing. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. That could have been much more catastrophic than it was.
So much worse. So much worse.
Just amazing. And you could be the most tactical guy in the world with the most foresight in the world, and you would never guess that would happen.
That's right.
I mean,
That's right.
Hey guys, tonight roll call. Let's talk about what if a guy steals a tank? Okay.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to talk about that. I mean, and then a guy steals a tank and he's blowing, he's driving through RVs, and I mean, that RV is my favorite part of that video.
That's it. Just peels that thing back.
It's like splinters flying everywhere,
Cars are this tall,
If John, if only I knew Todd Jager, that we could invite him on the podcast and talk about that. If only I knew him. Todd, come on, baby. I've talked to him. He's thinking about it, but it's a one of those incidents that just everybody has seen. And if they haven't, they got to go look for it on YouTube.
They should.
San Diego tank chase. San Diego tank chase. Bam. You're welcome.
And think about it. What would you do if this happened to your agency? You don't have a whole lot of options.
No.
You can hear the cops on that call. You can hear them talking, and they're actually talking about getting another tank to stop it.
Wow.
What are you going to do?
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
really good. And as I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, as I recall, there was a San Diego PD officer that was a tanker that was involved at the conclusion of that knew some things about hatches and that. Is that accurate?
That's right. Absolutely. He ended up being one of our POA members, a really good guy. Todd Jager's next door neighbor, I might add.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And one of our TFOs, Rick Piner, was the guy you see on the video who crawled up on the tank and shot the suspect and killed him.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, he's one of our TFOs. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's great. Well, we'll keep bugging Todd because Todd has a lot to offer. As you well know, he was your partner on, I can't even imagine how many hours.
So many things.
Do you even know how many hours you flew together?
No, but I'll tell you what, and nothing against the guys and girls in our unit, nothing against them at all. But in my opinion, if Todd was the pilot and I was the TFO, there was nothing. If somebody can be caught, we're going to catch them. We were so proud of that. And we loved working together and just had a great time.
Yeah, I sat in the back seat with you guys a couple times, and you guys worked seamlessly. You had your moments, didn't you? And we'll talk. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
Okay.
As all partners do. But it was fun to watch. I can honestly say it was fun to watch because you didn't even have to say things to each other. You knew each other so well. And,
that's right.
And you just did things. And you didn't have to say, hey, bring it around. He was already bringing it around. Or you were already bringing it around for him. It was so cool. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about crews. But so you start with San Diego PD, you go to the academy, you graduate. Where do you go in San Diego? Walk us through your jobs coming up to air support.
Okay. I went to Southeast San Diego Patrol, which at the time was considered where you're likely to get into the crap. Okay. And that's what I wanted. A lot of people didn't want to go there. That's exactly where I wanted to go. So I was in seventh heaven. And, I met a lot of nice people out there, learned a lot about people and It was the first time I was ever really a cop on the street. National City had me doing other things. I was Navy, so I was always buying dope as a Navy guy and hookers and all that. This is the first time I really worked the street. I worked there for 3 years, and there was a group of us who really had a good time, not at people's expense, but if you could keep your mind straight, patrol is fun. It is fun.
Yep.
Stay safe. Stay with the guys who share and girls who share your philosophy. You're not hurting people. You're actually making a difference. And I truly believe in that stuff. I was a detective later on, but my heart was always with patrol. I loved patrol. I really did. So after I got done with Southeast San Diego, I went to Southern Division, John, and went down there, and I'd learned that was actually the highest and lowest income part of all of San Diego. And for people who don't know about San Diego, the city, there's the city of San Diego. Then if you go south, you go through National City, Chula Vista, both big cities in their own right. And then you get back into San Diego. It's kind of weird how San Diego's laid out. And that Southern Division is the city of San Diego. That goes right to the port of entry, the busiest land port of entry in the world, San Ysidro Port of Entry. And from there, it goes east through the canyons and mountains. Now, a lot of it's developed industrial today, where all the drug smuggling tunnels are found under businesses and all that. But at the time when I was there, it was a wide open canyon with fields miles long all the way out to the Otay Mountains. So, and I had a good time down there too. I learned to speak gutter Spanish, which I can still kind of keep that up today, where it comes in useful around here in Southern Arizona.
Yeah.
I got to be on the border task force down there, which was back in the 80s was, the wild, wild west.
Absolutely.
So,
Yep. I think now's a good time to talk about that.
I think we need to talk about that time. Go ahead. Tell us about that unit.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned air medical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completions Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs, including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Before you get into it, I want to bring up the book that was written about that, Lines and Shadows.
Yeah,
that book
Joe Wamba
outlines that unit very well. So if you get a chance, for the listeners, if you get a chance to read that book, it's absolutely amazing, and it's 100% true, at least from the folks that I've heard. So this will confirm that once more.
It's one of his best books.
It is. And he followed along with the team, and I can't remember the detective's name. What was his name? It's on the tip of my tongue. He and Joe were like this.
Yeah.
And Joe would come to, he'd come to some ALEA Western Region. I haven't been. You remember, Jack, you were probably down there. And he signed books and all that. He's a very nice man. He worked for you guys for how long did he work for LA?
I don't know the exact, but a long time. He didn't do a full career because his writing kicked off, and it became his new career. But he was a detective, I believe.
I thought he made sergeant too. I thought he was a sergeant.
It may have been a sergeant and then detective. He was a longtime LAPD guy. Yeah.
Well, he wrote that book, Lines and Shadows, and you're right, John. It's a very accurate representation of what it was. It changed when they put the wall up. People say the wall don't make a difference. The wall made all the difference in the world in San Diego. But when we were down there, our job, for people who haven't read the book, the illegal land, there was no, people say, well, what's the border between San Diego and Tijuana? There was no border. And that's literally the truth. You could be standing and step across the border and you would never know it because it's just a wide open canyon down there for miles and miles. So what would happen is the illegal aliens, of course, would come across from Tijuana into San Diego. They try to get in the communities, they get their rides and they head north, or they'd stay there, whatever it was. But these other illegal aliens would prey on those people coming across the border in the canyons. And we're not talking about just give me your money, rapes, robberies, murder. It was out of control. I mean, it was absolutely out of control. How do you combat that? because they just run across the border. It was really something. So finally, under tremendous pressure, the city of San Diego PD said, okay, we got to figure something out here. So we merged with the Border Patrol. If I'm going memory correct, it was 3 of them or 4 of them and 3 or 4 of us. It depends on the teams. And we would merge together primarily because it's also a federal issue. And the Border Patrol spoke better Spanish than me for sure, but some of the other cops who were on San Diego PD. You had multiple cops shot, on that. One shot broke his leg, one shot in the chin in a foot chase. It was almost a guaranteed gun battle. Not every night, but on your 3-month term there, odds are better than not that you are going to get in a gun battle.
Wow.
I worked, though, like I said, in Southeast, that was considered the worst part of the town at the time. And I never got any shootouts with anybody. In my first 6 months down there, I had shot 3 people on the border team. So it was just this mark right here is the powder burn from one of the gun battles. It never went away. And every once in a while it starts bleeding. And I don't know really why that starts doing it, but it starts doing that. To this day, it doesn't. And that was on the first team was 86, I think.
Wow.
Was the first one. And I'm telling you, man, it was just a wild. The FBI did a study, DOJ did the study. And at the time, that was considered the most dangerous law enforcement assignment in the country.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it was.
Yeah.
It was.
So you guys would covertly go into the canyons and you'd hunt the folks that were going after the people that were coming across the border. So
Exactly.
It was almost like a special operations type mission that you guys were a part of. Really interesting.
It was. Yeah. We were sitting down on the first one about maybe 100 yards from the border. And of Tijuana, Colonia Libertad is the area. It's a very poor section of town of Tijuana. And these 2 guys walk up to us, and so we had a thing where we'd click the mics. We had 2 separate teams. We'd click the mic, so we knew that, okay, who's ever clicking a mic, somebody is making contact, and we don't want to speak English. We don't want to say what's going on here. So everybody shuts up. And we had a Charlie team. Their job was night scopes, parachute flares, radio communications, because sometimes we were out of communications in the canyons. So these 2 guys walk up to us, and there's 3 of us sitting around. Angel Baldonegro, Paul Blocker, the Border Patrol agent, and me. We're sitting in a triangle on the ground. I'm just sitting kind of on the ground with my legs crossed, and you always carry your gun. Your gun is not holstered. Your gun is in your hand out there. And it's just sitting out of sight, and these people are speaking Spanish to Paul and Angel, who speak fluent Spanish, and I don't. I can kind of tell what's going on, but I'm smart enough barely to keep my mouth shut. So hey, hola. So all of a sudden, the front guy turns around, and he goes for his waistband. And I mean, you just know, it's like the guy, don't go over the fence. Here it comes. I mean, you always wonder what you're going to do, right, you guys?
Yep.
And when you get into a shooting, how are you going to react? Well, there's no doubt in my mind how I'm going to react, and my 2 partners are going to react anymore. Once that decision is made, you know what you're going to do. And it was a flat out 6 feet away, if that, 5 feet away gun battle. Bam, 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 bam. The rounds going by, and I thought I was shot because the blast from the gun, and boom, stung. It was the powder coming out of the barrel that got me. We later determined what it was. Well, the guy I'm shooting is like right here. His buddy was behind him at an angle. So I hit the guy. I have a 9-shot semi-automatic pistol at the time. We're the first ones to carry semi-autos other than SWAT. Patrol had to carry revolvers at the day. That's how far we've come.
Yeah.
And I hit the guy 4 times out of 9 shots 6 feet away. And I've always been a pretty good shot, but that shows you when things are moving just a little under stress, how you can miss. People think, oh, that's an easy shot. Don't guarantee.
No. Yeah,
Not
right.
in a gun battle.
He's right. Not in a gun battle. But one of my shots missed and hit his buddy, the suspect's buddy, in the shoulder. And it spun him. He had a knife. It spun him around. And it had actually more physical impact than the guy that I shot center mass 4 times.
Isn't that funny?
One guy, and the guy with the knife, he takes off running towards Bravo team down a really steep hill. He has no idea.
Yeah.
My buddy Steve Pellegrino's with Bravo team, super funny guy. At the time, they've got a tire lit on fire, and he's teaching Bravo team Hava Nagila. They're dancing around the tire. And all of a sudden, they hear the radio click, 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 and they kind of stop, and they hear rounds going off. And they look, they go, what the heck is this? Well, here comes this one guy down the hill running right at him. And Steve goes, he's got a gun. So they unload on him, and he goes down. He lives.
Wow.
Our guy, luckily, was stupid, and he ran northbound across the canyon. He could have gone southbound and been in Tijuana. We couldn't have done anything about it, but he goes northbound.
Yeah. And
Angel had a sawed-off shotgun, but at the time they made us carry number 4 buck. We couldn't carry double lots.
Wow.
I know. The Kyler Gentler Police Department.
Yeah.
So, but all it did was pepper the guy's butt, and he actually outran us. And my pistol was empty, but I carried a 38 because we carried 38 revolvers. I carried one backup. He goes down the hill, cuts in the bush, and I shoot him 2 more times in the shoulder as he won't drop his gun. And he goes into these bushes. He finally starts bleeding out enough where we go in and get them both in custody. The cool thing was, and I'm not the least bit sorry about this, when they showed up in court after they got out of the hospital, they bring them, we're sitting in the courtroom hallway for the prelim, and they bring them up a special elevator with deputies, marshals to guide them into the courtroom. And they're both going, as they're walking. And to this day, they both have colostomy bags. So I was like, I'm okay with that,
Me too. Bravo.
Yeah.
Just for listeners that haven't read Lines and Shadows yet, tell us what you all were wearing when you're doing this. What kind of clothing, what were you wearing out there on this job?
Well, we were at the time, we were a tan colored uniform agency. And I had my tan khakis on. You got to remember, it's dark.
Right.
I mean, if you just have all your medals and stuff, they'd probably go, oh, yeah, those are cops right there. Other than that, we got jackets on. It was November. You know what it was? It was the Great American Smokeout Day. There's one day in November, and we kind of turned the meaning of that around,
That's good.
That's the day that happened in '86.
Yeah.
That's how I remember that. So, but unless you got down and looked at us, we had our jackets on and everything, you wouldn't have known.
They'd never know. Yeah. Good. Wow. That's great. That is great. And again, Lines and Shadows, great book.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great book.
Is.
Joe did a good job on that one. And like you said, he went down and researched that thoroughly.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Like he does on all his stuff, when he's basing it on things that he didn't experience himself, good stuff.
A nice guy too. Joe's a nice guy.
Yeah. On that topic of, you mentioned that you brought him to Western Regionals. You brought another guy to a Western Regional one time that everybody knows. Do you remember? Adam 12.
Oh, Martin Milner. Yeah.
Martin
Milner in.
That was
what a nice man he was too.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that I got to meet him there because I met Kent McCord later at Air Support one time. But Martin Milner, he lived in San Diego. He was a fisherman, as I recall. He had a fishing show on radio and before he passed. Right. And he was a great actor, a great man. And like you said, that influenced you. It influenced me.
That's right.
Other people, as we get into other generations, talk about Hill Street Blues and New York NYPD Blue and things. But our era, it was Adam 12. I mean,
absolutely.
And I still watch it. I watched it yesterday on MeTV, and I love those shows. And Marty Milner was amazing. Amazing.
He was.
He set such a good example, even though he's acting. He's setting the example of what cops should be as a trainer, as a cop. The way he dealt with people, everything. So it's funny how Hollywood, very professional, and the one time that he wasn't professional, if you remember that episode, he roughed up this child molester a little bit.
Child molester. Yep,
Yeah.
that's right.
And who had just molested a girl in his house and foot pursuit, and he catches him, gives him a little extra, nothing serious, but a little extra, and then immediately cops out of himself. Says, hey, just so you know, I did a little extra there and I shouldn't have. I was wrong. And I remember, I watched that and go, wow. Hollywood occasionally gets things right, and Adam 12 is one of those examples, where they got it right.
Do you remember the speech he gave at the ceremony, the Western Region Conference, to open it up? That was he was there for like 15 minutes giving a talk.
Yep.
And he didn't prepare a thing. He said, what do you want me to say? I said, I told him what you just said, Jack. I said, whether you know it or not, you influenced a lot of people to get into this profession, including myself. I said, there's a lot of those people out there my age who have the same feelings. So that's who you're talking to here. So, take it and run with it. Man, what he said, no preparation, it just sounded great.
It was. It was amazing, because he and Kent both knew over the years later, not when they were doing it, but they learned later exactly what you just said, Kevin. And Marty that day really made it clear. They realized, oh my God, we get mobbed by cops everywhere we go saying, you're the reason. You're the reason I'm in this uniform. And it was almost overwhelming to them, that, and they didn't realize when they were doing it, but they did. And one thing that comes up while we're talking about this, the other day I was watching, and they both had clamshell holsters, and LAPD was known for that clamshell, spring-loaded holster. And there was, recently there was controversy about someone trying to put their gun away on a certain incident, and they couldn't holster it. Martin Milner and Kent McCord holstered into a clamshell every single time and perfectly without looking. And I remember when I was watching the other day, I went, that's amazing. That's how dedicated they were. That is not an easy feat for the clamshell people. That it's on a swivel. It's not, it's spring loaded, and two actors were able to put their gun away without looking and seamlessly, but yet, we saw what happened recently. It just makes me laugh, but it also shows how that show was serious. Jack Webb was serious about that stuff. He wanted it real.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
I remember being up at Hooper, up at your heliport. Yeah, Jack Webb's badges are up there. Wasn't that right, from Dragnet days, or what's up there? He's got.
It's at the Academy in the restaurant.
Is that where it was?
Yeah, it's
okay.
It's in a plastic 714 is his badge number. Jack Webb got a police funeral, as did Martin Milner. When Martin,
I didn't know that.
Absolutely, when he died not that long ago, probably 5-6 years ago, when he passed, police funeral. He got full honors, honor guard, everything, and
well deserved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really, really cool, but not uncommon that we talk about things like that. Hollywood, in all its faults, and it's got plenty of them. They got it right with that show, and it influenced a lot of us. So that's kind of cool.
It shows the role and importance of the media in recruitment in law enforcement.
Absolutely.
That positive portrayal of law enforcement at the time led to a lot of folks then becoming police officers. You look at today, and the media does not portray law enforcement in a positive light. And you don't see, like, cops, for example, used to be primetime TV, and now you've got to go search for it on a subset of some other channel. So I think when we can get back to promoting the good work that's being done in the streets and in law enforcement in general, I think we'll start to see a shift in the tide of, folks wanting to do the job, but also public's perception, because a lot of times the public really has no clue of what we're doing day in and day out, so it's really, it's a disservice, I think, to our country to take those shows off of primetime TV.
When I came on, when did you join LA, Jack?
83, November of 83.
I joined, when was it? National City would have been about 81 and 80 or even 79. And then San Diego PD, I joined at the end of 81. When we came on, if you guys remember, especially you, Jack, because you're more, when did you're on to 05, you said,
05,
John?
yep. 05.
Okay. If you remember, Jack, San Diego was a toilet, downtown San Diego. Every place was, but people in the state, we had Rosebird, the Supreme Court. Remember this crap we had to go through? Yeah. People were tired of what was going on in the state of California. And all these propositions, Prop 8, all the things to tie our search and seizure with more applicable laws, with the Fourth Amendment directly, instead of having your own give the crooks a break law.
Right.
That started happening right when you and I joined up. So we got to ride this better and better and better thing about it. So crime kept going down. Things were actually pretty good. I mean, certainly about as good as you could expect at the time as far as crime and criminal activity. But what that meant was we had a lot of people in prison. Okay, let's forget root causes here for just a minute, and I'm not minimizing them. Yeah. But the bottom line is people seem today to have a hard time to correlate high prison population with low crime. But there is a direct correlation. Put these people in jail and then leave them there until they're older so their testosterone levels are down. They're not out there committing these crimes. Yeah. And okay, now you will give you a second chance. But this is ridiculous, what we're going through today. And the media is certainly no help.
It ain't rocket science, but hopefully it's turning around. Hopefully. I'm really hopeful.
I hope you're right.
Our profession has taken a serious hit. I don't think it's fatal, but we were in grave condition, and I think it's starting to come back. I'm very hopeful. But
if it does, it'll because the public is tired of it, not us.
That's right.
The cops know what time it is.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's exactly right. When did aviation? I mean, you were a pilot. You worked in a helicopter, so you had aviation on your radar from day one with San Diego PD, I would imagine. But tell us about.
No.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
See,
no, not even a little bit.
Tell us about that.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers.
Thank you to our sponsor, Shotover. Shotover Systems is the leading developer and manufacturer of high-performance gyro-stabilized cameras with advanced real-time AR mapping and mission management, all backed by unparalleled custom training and support. Now offering the M2 multi-sensor system, sole 6-axis EO/IR platform with 4K Ultra HD color and infrared technology. Ideal for law enforcement and defense. Offered with real-time AR overlays to quickly identify streets, weather, and traffic. Automated license plate recognition, 24-megapixel digital photographs, and automated steering and tracking.
Bell is proud to sponsor Vertical Helicasts and their vision to hold meaningful mission, safety, and best practice conversations in the helicopter industry. The lessons learned from these conversations will undoubtedly shape the future of both new and veteran helicopter operators.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned air medical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completions Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs, including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
As we wrap up this two-part series celebrating the 200th episode of the Hangar Z Podcast, we want to take a moment to express our heartfelt gratitude to all of our listeners and supporters. Achieving this significant milestone wouldn't have been possible without each of you tuning in week after week, sharing your feedback, and being an integral part of our community. In this series, we're honored to have Kevin Means share his incredible experiences in law enforcement aviation. It's episodes like these that highlight not only the challenges faced by our brave officers, but also the triumphs and evolution of our craft. We take immense pride in the journey we've shared with you, from the incredible stories of our guests to the insights into the aviation world. Thank you for being a part of the Hangar Z family. We look forward to continuing this journey together, diving into more fascinating topics and highlighting the unsung heroes within law enforcement and aviation. Here's to the next 200 episodes. Cheers.
Time to close up the hangar. Thanks for joining us on the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts.